Warning, the following audio transmission is based on theory and is intended for entertainment purposes only. It's Doomsday and its affiliates will not be held liable for anything your dumbass does. Listener discretion is advised.
Welcome, everybody, to It's Doomsday podcast. Today is, you know what today is?
National Water Day.
Well, actually, it's Martin Luther King Jr. Day. It's Monday.
Oh, geez.
Monday, January 19th, 2026. But we're not talking about Martin Luther King Jr. or the Civil Rights Movement today, because this is a prepper show. We're talking about water. One of the most crucial things you need to have in order to survive any type of disaster, apocalyptic scenario, survival scenario, it's the water. It all boils down to this. No pun intended. And with me on the show is my lovely co-host, Local Prepper. Sorry, I didn't mean to step on you there.
That's all right. My lovely co-host. Yeah, that's it.
Lovely.
I'm going to Vanna White the shit out of this stuff.
You know what? So we figured since we got the introductory episodes out of the way, starting off 2026, we would get into the key components for survival with the first few episodes of the year. And water just made sense to kind of cover this first. And I got an interesting thing. I don't know if you knew this or not. Did you want to know something interesting?
Sure.
Okay, so Walmart, the store
that I don't work at. Go ahead.
Right. Okay. Is no longer carrying Sawyer products, water filtration products, in many of their stores.
Huh.
Yeah.
It's interesting. Did they replace it with something else?
Yeah. So Life Straw has came out with more options as far as bag filtration goes.
Okay.
And I'm thinking that may have cornered the market with Walmart a little bit, or there was some issues going on, because there are some unforeseen issues that aren't talked about with the Sawyers.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe somebody discovered something, and maybe they went after Walmart, and Walmart said, we're just simply not going to carry these on the shelves anymore. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. I hadn't noticed that. So
the interesting thing about the Sawyer, and this goes back to any survival straw, it's the idea that they can harbor bacteria. That is a thing.
Yeah, in theory, yeah.
Right. So especially when you consider you're using this to filter potentially contaminated water, that bacteria is living in that filter.
Yes, that's very true. Even if you backwash it, you're still going to have some bacteria living in there.
Right. So there's also another unforeseen issue. And again, with all the filtration straws, the idea that they do freeze, water crystals expand. And it does damage filters, and you don't know this because you can't see inside of them.
Yeah, absolutely true. That's why, it's just a lot of people don't even think about it. They just make it part of their kit, and then winter comes and they use it once or they forget about it, and then it freezes, and it's completely useless.
Right. Right. So on average, in a survival scenario, I believe experts put it at 3 days without water.
Mm-hmm.
Is your term of survival, which means water is your key, most important component for survival. So when you listen to the experts, they have the 3-3-3 rule. Okay. And that is 3 days without water. I don't know where they got this one at, but 3 hours without shelter. And I call bullshit because I hang out outside without shelter all the time.
Yeah, and we kind of grew up that way. Go ahead.
Right. And 3 minutes without oxygen and 3 weeks without food.
Gotcha.
And then you will meet your ultimate demise. Now, if the apocalypse happens, hopefully we'll still have oxygen, so we won't have to worry about that.
I think we're good.
But the thing that's going to take you out the quickest is going to be the water.
100%.
That's it. So I guess there's a flood of information I have for this episode. So I don't know if you want to jump in.
It's, people don't really think about it, and it's a very serious subject in the preparedness community.
It is. So I want to, I guess, first get into like mistakes people make. All right. And I want to talk the first about is the storage of the water. Okay. Water storage. Even though bottled water is in bottles, it still can go bad. And a lot of things affect the shelf life of water. Main being sunlight, temperature control. If you have water in an environment that is too warm for an extended period of time, that water can go bad. And sometimes, even though it's sealed, even though it's bottled, it can start harboring bacteria inside the bottle. Which, when I found out that information, I was shocked. I didn't know that was a thing. Then,
oh yeah, very much so.
Yeah. Then there is the idea of the sunlight makes it go bad quicker. Not to be confused with the process of desalinization, where you use sunlight to create steam to essentially purify water. Not the same thing. If you have sunlight beating through that bottle for months on end, you got a bottle of water sitting in the window, that water is going to go bad. The end. So storage is key with your water. Storage is key. Cool place, low sunlight, extend the shelf life of that. I've never been able to find a actual detailed chart of how long bottled water stays good for on a shelf. But the majority, the consensus that I read said it's about a year. About a year you want to drink it or rotate it.
Yeah, that's there's a lot of variables when you start to talk about bottled water, and I think the biggest one is that storing water in the type of plastic that they use to make bottled water, that they use to bottle water in, is generally a bad idea. All of the things that you just talked about are all definitely associated with it, but you basically have leaching of the oils that are inside of the plastic that they use to bottle water. And then the bottles themselves actually degrade. I know a lot of beginning preppers they'll go buy like 6 or 7 cases of water, right? And then they'll just like stack them up in the corner of some place, right? Okay, it's cool, it's dry, whatever. But that plastic is still slowly degrading. It's designed to degrade. And then so one day you wake up and all of your bottles are crumbling and you can't quite figure it out. And so, you can pretty much guarantee that all of the bottles are degraded to the point where they've actually leached into the water. So I never recommend anybody ever uses bottled water as their survival source or as their water source for emergency situations.
Well, okay, so yeah, you don't want to do that, but also you got to think about the longevity too of how much bottled water you would actually need to store for your needs. So let's break this down. I want to put water into 3 different categories. Okay. Category 1, hydration. All right. This is your water that needs to be filtered, boiled, purified before consumption. Okay. Like unless you're drinking it right from a bottle or from like a beautiful, crisp, clean artesian well or a fresh mountain spring where you could see the head of the spring where this water is coming out of the side of the mountain. Okay. Anything for hydration. Then secondary, you have hygiene needs and general overall purpose for water, like taking a shower, washing your face, brushing your teeth. And then the secondary side to that is doing the dishes, washing your silverware. Okay. We use water for all these things on just the daily basis. Right. And then there's the third factor in this, and that is disposal of water. Okay. Because people do dumb stuff and people will mix up contaminated water with their purified water, stuff like that. And we also utilize water for other things. A good example of this is fire control, right? So say you're at your little apocalyptic campground in the middle of nowhere because you bugged out. Well, you obviously have to do something to prevent against burning the whole entire forest down because you're going to have a fire going for heat, cooking, purifying your water, etc. Right? So, in these 3 categories, hydration, hygiene, and, gray water and just your excess safety waters, things like that. Right. If you don't have that first one figured out, that hydration one, you're as good as dead. It's over for you, period. And there's no way to really sugarcoat that. Like you can go for a while without getting a shower. That's not necessarily going to kill you, but the hydration will. And then there's one more kind of falls under hygiene, but kind of not really. is the idea of you may need water for medical needs. Okay, and this has to be purified water, as pure as possible. If you need to clean a wound, if you have to flush a wound, okay, if you get something in your eye and you have to flush it, if you put contaminated water in a wound, you will get an infection. If you put contaminated water in your eye, which is a mucous membrane, you will again get an infection. So these things are key, right? I feel like I'm boring you. You falling asleep over there?
No, I'm listening. I'm listening to what you're saying. I mean,
okay. Is it good information?
Yeah, you're making sense. You're making sense. I mean, in my mind, I'm like, okay, so, in other industries that would consider that as, you've got your blue water, you've got your gray water, and you've got your black water.
Okay.
But I don't think that's what you're talking about. You know what I'm saying? Because we're talking about the beginning and end uses. With your blue water, this is what you're going to consume. You may use it. It's primarily for consumption, but you could use it to wash your body with, you know what I'm saying? Or maybe to rinse out a wound. This is water that is bacteria and debris free, and then you've got your gray water, which is something you did before, like you washed the dishes or you clean your clothes, or maybe it's what's left over from taking a shower, and then you got your black water, and that should be self-explanatory. And you've definitely got to be able to get rid of that in some way, shape, or form.
Right.
So, but yeah, I'm tracking with you.
So in something else I do want to throw out there, because I'm going to go down a road that's going to be a little bit on the maybe uncomfortable side for some people, but it needs to be talked about because this is a survival show after all, and not sorry we hurt your feelings show. I will tell you, being in the medical field now, how dangerous UTIs can be and how quickly those can put somebody down and out. And the amount of symptoms that come with those are insane. You would not believe how easily a female, not like a trans female, like a legit real woman, okay, can get a UTI from contaminated water. It is a very easy thing to happen. So just one more reason to have the best possible clean water you can for the hygiene side of things. And this isn't just a female thing either. I've seen males get UTIs where they present with stroke-like symptoms. So it is very serious, but it is way more common for a female to get one of these and have really bad problems versus a male.
Yeah. So
just bear that in mind for all our female listeners and all our male listeners that are prepping with females. Yeah. There ain't no OBGYN in the apocalypse. And if there is, I bet he's a really fucking sketchy dude. Something else I wanted to add to that Sawyer thing.
Okay.
In lieu of not having the Sawyers available on the shelf. So I use water filtration. I use the survival filters a lot at home. Main reason is I have a shallow well on the property, which is fine. The water's fine. It's bacteria free. However, when we get like our heavy rains, we do get sediment stirred up in the water, and it can get very bad. I don't know if we had any sediment issues when you were coming by and visiting. But we'll actually get like a tinge to the water. And I use the survival filter straws because they go down to such a low micron. It takes all the cloudiness out of the water. It takes all the the sediment out of the water. And I found something very comparable. So what I was buying before were the Sawyer sink attachment filters. It's basically a regular Sawyer, not the mini, but the regular that has the attachment for your faucet.
Oh, that's interesting.
Right. And they're absolutely fantastic. They basically have the same hose on them that a garden hose kind of has. Like a garden hose thread, like that fat pipe thread.
Yeah.
Anyway, they're not on the shelves anymore, like I mentioned. But I found out the pure PUR, the pure water filters make a sink one that is rated between, I think it's half to 1 micron, half to 1, I think, where the Sawyer was like 0.1 micron.
Yeah.
So although you're not getting as much filtration, the idea of something like this to be able to stockpile filters with is absolutely fantastic, right?
Yeah.
So maybe if you're in a situation like me, where I deal with the occasional sediment and I need a way to get that out of the water, this situation for me works fantastic because it takes a cartridge filter that I can change out. Yeah. And, they have a use amount and a monthly amount and, et cetera. But I mean, the fact of the matter is I can go buy 4 filters and I'm prepped for the year. And if shit hits the fan and I say, okay, I want water filtration for a whole year, I just have to have 4 of those in a cabinet somewhere.
Yeah, I mean that's a really good idea, especially with the type of system that you have that is pulling from that shallow well.
Right.
I think that's a great idea. Most people have like almost like a Berkey type setup, but because of the way your water is set up, I think that's a great idea because then you don't have to transfer it from one container to the next and trying to keep something full for your family and stuff like that. I think that's a great idea.
So I have been entertaining the idea of the Berkey.
Mm-hmm.
Because so many people out there have them. And I don't know enough about them to know if it makes sense to purchase one yet or not.
Well, I mean, it really has everything to do with the type of water that you're dealing with. Berkeys are generally known to be able to filter pretty much anything out. In with your particular situation, a Berkey could work. It's not an issue, to be honest with you. Because it just basically uses, in most cases, it's just using activated carbon filtration is what it's using. Big old, honking carbon filters.
Okay.
And that's just that'll pretty much filter out pretty much everything with the exception of like the protozoa and stuff like that. The carbon filters generally just don't break down that much. They'll get some of it, but they won't get all of it. But if you're coming off a shallow well, then you're probably not even truly worried about that. I have a well on my property in North Carolina and I don't filter any of that water.
Right.
But as far as I think it would have a lot to do with whether you had cabinet space or a counter space for it, because it's going to take up some space.
Right. Yeah. And that's the thing. We live in this tiny home and we're very limited. So that's kind of been the main reason I haven't bought one yet. But it could be something that's entertained in the future.
Yeah, I got you.
But to some more things here with the water and in the realm of consumption. Okay.
Okay.
So I want to talk to you guys about a little thing called Giardia and the beaver fever. So if you guys don't know, Giardia, aka beaver fever, is a bacteria that lives in certain bodies of water. Okay. Now, you're typically going to find this bacteria in still or very slow moving water. All right. So ponds and lakes, especially where there's animals that are near the water sources or are inhabiting the water sources, there's a good chance there's bacteria lurking, and there's a very good chance it could be Giardia. It's very common for people to get this if they're out drinking out of streams and lakes and ponds and things, which is why you just shouldn't do that. Now, Giardia is very wicked because it has I don't even know how you describe this. It's a complete circle of side effects. So you get Giardia and you'll get some of the worst stomach pains of your life, which will come with some of the worst diarrhea and the worst dehydration you've ever had. Now, with that, you'll be forced to hydrate. And guess what? If that's your water source where you got it from, you're just putting that back in your body and just completing this circle, and it's never going to go away. And if you can't get to fresh water, it will eventually take you out. Mm-hmm. Right? So very, very serious when we talk about the idea of the bacteria in the water. God, I'm trying to think. I believe it was during the Civil War. Soldiers came in and they were drinking from the freshwater springs that they would find in the creeks and wherever they could get water at. Because, back then they weren't passing out bottles on the battlefield, right? They didn't have Sawyers or, water filtration straws. They knew to do one thing, and one thing primarily was if it looked clean, it was okay to drink. Mm-hmm. Because they also didn't have the contaminants in the water back then that we have today. Not all the chemicals and all the different kinds of bacterias and whatnot. There wasn't a potential of like HIV or AIDS being in the water. It wasn't a thing, right?
Okay.
I mean, it's still not a thing today, but I'm just saying. But
that damn HIV stream.
HIV strains in the goddamn water supply. So there just wasn't much cause for concern. If it was like cool, clear, good-looking water, they drank it. All right. They did know back then about, the idea of purification, maybe running the water through a cloth to get the sediment out. And maybe you had some smart whiz kid that was like, hey, we should boil this first. But the soldiers that came from the farms who were drinking out of, rainwater collection tanks like cisterns, or drinking from wells, or drinking from these water sources already, they developed immunities to this. But the soldiers that came from the cities who were not exposed to these kind of things in the water got very sick, and it definitely impeded their ability to function on the battlefield. So just, food for thought when you're out there collecting from your water sources, because we have new things that lurk in the water now. And when we get into the apocalyptic side of this, everybody talks about the nuclear holocaust and fallout. There are very few water filters on the market. There are some, but there's not many, like not one that you're going to buy at Walmart, that is going to take out radioactive particles out of the water. Okay. So honestly, your best bet at that point is a desalinization system. All right. Because even boiling those particles remain in there.
Mm-hmm.
So the only thing you could really do is desalinization or distilling the water. That's about what you have to work with. And even then, it could still be sketchy because cross-contamination can still happen. So if that's really what you're prepping for, and you got the bunker, and you got the bottles of water, and you got the IOSAT tabs, and you got, all the stuff, remember, you're still going to need an abundance of water. So invest in one of those filters. They're not highly expensive. I have a couple of them, actually. They're not highly expensive, but they do have a very short lifespan. All right. Now, the idea, if you're getting your water from a well that's bored 450 feet in the ground, you're going to be okay. You shouldn't have anything to worry about. That's if you survive the initial blast and everything else that's going to come with that. Eating the radioactive deer and whatnot. So, LP, what do you got in realm of different advice for waters?
I would ask people to look at their current situation, because none of, there's 1,000 ways to skin that cat. But, like for instance, here in the town that I live in, I'm on city water. So that water's already treated. I don't even have to treat it. I literally just have to store it. So I would be looking at storing as much water as you possibly can. Whereas if you lived, out in the country, you would want some kind of filtration device that, gives you the ability to filter out all of the brown water, like you were talking. There's a lot of minerals that are in on the property in North Carolina, and that a regular carbon filter would take care of that. You know what I'm saying? But if you're really worried about drinking out of puddles, then obviously get yourself a life straw, and then don't try to use it during the winter, because that's going to cause a problem. But there's a lot of stuff out there. The other thing, when you were talking about the Giardia, if you know that your water source, you're out in the country, you've got your bug out site, whatever your situation is, but that animals, they partake, and they spend a lot of time at the same drinking trough that you're trying to survive off of, then you might want to, maybe invest a little bit of money in maybe an ultraviolet light. Ultraviolet rays actually disrupt the DNA of bacteria. It can kill viruses and kill protozoa. And it does it without chemicals. One of the products they call it is like a SteriPen, but that doesn't fit my situation, so I just have knowledge on it. But and obviously the boiling, you can use chemicals to deinfect. You can learn the rules for chlorinization of water to kill bacteria. But generally circling back. You should never store water for more than a year. You can store water for up to 5 years, but you do need specialized chemicals, and your water's probably not going to taste very good. I generally won't store water for more than 6 months, just because I don't want my water to taste bad. So,
well, that makes sense. I mean, I get that. So something interesting that I'm working on prep-wise right now in regards to water is, and I actually started getting more into the process today, is we are putting in one hell of an underground cistern tank for rainwater collection.
Okay.
And I say started on it today is I'm excavating the ground back next to our house foundation, and we're actually building a cistern out of block.
Okay.
I don't remember. At one point in time, I knew how many gallons it was going to end up being, but it's basically like 12 by 12 by 12 feet deep, approximately.
Okay.
So it's gonna I think it's gonna be at least 2,000 gallons. I had the math at one time mathed out, but anyway, the reason I'm doing it this way is because my neighbor where I grew up at, they did the exact same thing. They just dug a hole out when they were putting their house in, and they had leftover block, so they went and got some more block, and they built a tank out of block.
Mm-hmm.
And I shit you not, this cistern tank, it's still functional to this day. I talked to my buddy because it's his parents' house. I talk to him every once in a while, and we shoot the shit. We still hang out occasionally, and I asked him. I said, "How old do you think that thing is now?" I was like, I was putting my math on probably about 50 years old. He's like, "Yeah, it's probably about 50 years old because it was there before he came along."
Mm-hmm.
Right, and they've never really had any major issues with it. I think he said the only thing I could ever remember that his dad ever fixed was it sprung a little leak around the pickup line where it came in at, and he had to go in and reseal that.
Mm-hmm.
But that was it. In 50 years, no problem with this tank built out of block. So,
yeah, I mean, it's a great idea. It's a great idea. I mean, you're going to put a liner in it?
So this is something, and I got to do some more research on this. What I would like to do is I would like to avoid a liner and find a good coating to put in there. Mm-hmm. That's going to be a non-toxic coating, right?
Yeah.
Because rainwater is great to drink. You can drink rainwater. That's fine.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
But it's the idea of when it sits in a tank, what bacteria could fester in that tank, mm-hmm. right? So there's the idea of I would like to drink it, and now you're talking about these UV lights has me more inclined to look into an inline UV light for that. But yeah, what I'm trying to find now is I'm trying to find a non-toxic something that I can coat that with before going in there, because it's going to be very hard for me to find like a square liner, like to my specific size and dimensions.
Uh-huh.
Right. So that's kind of where I'm at trying to figure that out. But also here's something else that is very interesting that I decided to do. Our heating and cooling system for the house has to be changed. Right.
Okay.
So I'm going to have this tank that's full of water all the time that's maintaining a constant temperature. So I'm now looking into geothermal heating and cooling because I can use that cistern tank like a giant radiator.
Okay.
And just continuously circulate water through it to heat and cool the house.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's a very interesting idea. I would just be more, just continue to be focused on the, the safe, keeping it safe. You know what I'm saying? Because go ahead.
It's kind of like so when that water circulates for the heating and cooling system, it's basically one thing you can do it with is you could do it with isopropyl alcohol. I think 95% or higher, and distilled water is what you need to make the chemical mixture that runs in the tubes. And as far as the tubes go that would sit inside that tank, they would just be PEX. So that's what your drinking water comes through anyway. Mm-hmm. So at the end of the day, if we spring a leak, you're getting isopropyl alcohol in there. You're not getting, Freon or antifreeze or anything like that. You're just getting, like if you smell if the water starts smelling like alcohol, it's like, oh, okay, we've sprung a leak. We need to fix that. Need to fix that. It's not going to kill you, but you got to fix it. And then, like I said, the PEX it's fine. If it's safe for drinking water, it's safe to be in the tank that we're going to be using, I would assume, but it's mainly right now currently trying to find that non-toxic coating for the inside of that tank is what I'm currently working on.
Yeah, that'll be interesting to see how that project comes out.
Yeah, I'm really excited. And I think that if everything goes according to plan, we might start laying block for it about maybe about 2 weeks from now, maybe 2 weeks, hopefully 2 weeks, hopefully not longer than that.
Gotcha. Yeah.
So see, the problem with when you do an episode on water is there's so many variable factors and there's so many things we could talk about. Purification in general, like all the different methods, the water purification tablets, the different filters you could buy. The list is kind of endless, but I like what you said that people need to evaluate.
Oh yeah, they definitely need to take a look at what type of scenario they see themselves in. There's too many times we find brand new preppers or even experienced preppers who believe that they're going to survive off of a life straw, and that'll work for a few days, not during the winter, but it'll work for a few days until you get tired of sticking your face in a mud puddle. And then you'll discover the straw that came with the kit, and you'll think that you're good to go for another 3 days. And then at some point you'll realize that the amount of water that you need to put inside of your body, let alone use for whatever you're going to do, is just it's pretty large. It's a pretty large amount of water, which is the biggest problem with water preparedness and the storage. It's storage. I always tell people just spend the money, get yourself one of those 325 gallon containers that are designed to store and dispense water. Put it in your damn basement, refill it every 6 months, and have a plan to use it.
Right.
And 99% of your problems will go away when you start talking about water.
Right.
So,
yeah, I couldn't agree more. Well, that's about it. That's about all the time we have for today. Everybody, subscribe to the show, share the show, the email, it's doomsdaypodcast@gmail.com. Reach out to us for episode suggestions. That's about all I got. You got anything else?
no, I do not. I think we're all wet.
That's all. We're all wet. That's it. We're out.
This is an emergency action message. At approximately 1 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time, NORAD is tracking 15 ICBM nuclear missiles inbound to the following cities: Orlando, Miami, Pittsburgh, Dover, Newark, Richland, Philadelphia, New York City, Baltimore, Los Angeles, Las Vegas, Boston, Seattle, Detroit. This is an extremely deadly situation. Stay tuned. The next emergency message will be a presidential address.